We are here today talking with Dr. Dwayne Elmore, who's with the Natural Resources, Ecology, and Management Department here at OSU. He's an extension specialist, and we want to talk today about the Callery pears. We all know they're a little bit invasive, but there's other things that you might be seeing out in the wildlife. Dr. Elmore, so behind us is a Callery pear.
Yes.
It is blooming, you can see, and it's starting to pass. Let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of Callery pear versus some of the others.
Okay, so it's been planted widely across the state in the eastern U.S. It has really nice, showy early spring blooms and upright and rapid growth, and so it's a nice shade tree. But it has a lot of undesirable characteristics, as people have found out. It's really prone to break during ice and windstorms. It is a real problem in suburban and urban areas because of grackles and starlings that like to roost in it.
It's got a dense branching
Very
structure.
dense, yeah. And then probably the most problematic feature is that it's invasive. So it doesn't stay put. It tends to move into open prairies and even into forests and completely change the plant composition. And it's becoming a huge problem in Oklahoma. It's already a major problem in Arkansas and Tennessee and parts east of here. So it's a plant we can do something about before it becomes more problematic.
Because it's not just it's taken over fields, but it actually changes the ecology in those fields, right?
Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot about eastern red cedar, you know, invading prairies and turning them into woodlands, but the same thing's happening with Bradford pear, except this plant's not even native. Whereas eastern red cedar, at least you can burn them or cut them, but this plant resprouts, so it's even more difficult to get rid of once it's established.
And so that's something, one of the features you'll often see is these almost become thickets, large thickets of Callery pear.
Correct.
So what are some of the other white flowering spring trees that we might be seeing that aren't Callery pear? We want to define those.
So a lot of the native plums bloom at the same time, and some of the more common ones that people will encounter are sand plum, which tends to stay small and form thickets. American plum, which is a single stem and grows in forest edges or sometimes even in open forest. And then Mexican plum, which will grow on forest edges but mostly out in the open. They all bloom at a similar time, but they're easily distinguishable. The sand plum tends to form thickets, and it has a coarse leaf surface. All those plums have coarse leaf surfaces, so that's one of the easiest ways to identify it. The Bradford or Callery pears have smooth, glossy leaves once they leaf out.
And a very oval shaped leaf too.
Yeah, and the growth form is different. The Bradfords tend to form more of a conical or kind of a pyramid shape once they get large, whereas the plums tend to sprawl and have a more kind of, outward growing shape.
Okay. Yeah, I always think Bradfords look like lollipops, and the Mexican plums tend to have more of a horizontal branching structure to them.
And those are really desirable plants to have and good alternatives that are commercially available.
Okay, and so the flower on Bradfords is always white, correct? Now on the plums, can that flower color vary a little bit?
It can be more pinkish, but it from a distance it's probably going to look white. You know, it would look quite similar. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Callery pears have kind of went unnoticed in a lot of places, because people are used to seeing plums bloom in March.
Right.
And so they're just assuming, oh, those are all plums. But if you get a closer look, you realize, no, that doesn't belong here.
Okay. And of course, we can always enjoy the sand plum jelly and that sort of stuff. And the Mexican plums as well? Yeah,
the American plum, in my opinion, has the most palatable fruit.
Okay.
The sand plum would probably be second, and the Mexican plum tends to be a little drier.
Okay.
But it is palatable. You can use it for jellies and jams. It's just not quite as moist and sweet as some of the other plums.
And could these work in a homeowner situation too, if they're looking to get rid of their Bradford pear, or what are some other options that maybe homeowners should consider?
Yeah, besides our native plums, Redbud is a good alternative. Of course, it looks completely different, but it also is an early spring bloomer.
And there are white buds, so if you're looking for the white flower of a Bradford.
Yeah, and redbuds grow fast, whereas plums do not. Plums are slow growing, so if you want something that's like a Callery in that it grows very fast, a redbud would be a good choice. And they can tolerate full sun. They do best in partial sun. And another one is Carolina buckthorn, especially if you're in eastern Oklahoma. And it's a beautiful ornamental. It's a native plant, and it's also commercially available.
All right. So just because we see a white tree out there blooming doesn't mean that it's a Callery pear. It could be one of our natives, but we got to be sure to distinguish before we take them down.
Correct.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Elmore.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.